Okay, so for today's lesson, we're going to do something more like the lesson for Turtle, and I'm going to have you guys kind of type along the code as we go. So first of all, please open whatever Python platform you want. In this case, I'm going to recommend starcoder.org, and I'm just going to put that in the chat. So you can go to this site here and code along with me. Someone asked earlier, it won't save your code, but I would advise putting it on a doc or something. And I'm going to go along and explain today's project, in this case, Pong. We are going to, sorry, and then so on the actual StarCoder site, I'm going to put the link of this in there too. You are going to be able to access the full code of today's game, and if you find you've made a mistake or a certain function or part of the code is wrong, I would advise you to first try and copy and paste a section of this code into your code and then see if that helps. Again, I'm gonna kind of go at a faster pace, so if you guys have find anything to be confusing or you want me to go slower, just type it in the chat. Okay, so again, today's lesson is going to be Pong. What we're going to do is we're going to end up creating a simple game where we have a ball going around and being able to create and manipulate these two paddles to go left and right, and sorry, up and down to try and catch the ball. So I want you guys right now to open up your Python platforms and then type into the chat when you're ready to start the actual code. And then again, if you don't have one, I put the link of starcoder.org in there, and then you can follow along with the playground. Okay, so I strongly advise you guys to type along because the majority of this class is just going to be us going over and typing the code. So the first thing is, again, we are going to import Turtle because we need to grab all of these Turtle commands and put them into our playground. So type along, and we're going to import Turtle to Python. And then right now we're going to set the value of wn for window to turtle.screen. Does anyone remember what turtle.screen actually is? Okay, so when we create turtle.screen, it's literally going to be the screen itself. So it's going to be the background screen that we use. And a lot of people are saying color. We can set the background color of it, but the window itself is going to be this screen where we play and create our game. So it's going to be the screen itself. So when we create our window as turtle.screen, make sure you add the parentheses. We can set the background color. And then if you'll remember from the turtle lesson, we have different colors. I'm going to set it to white. And then what we're going to do is, in order to get an accurate idea of how big our screen is, we're going to do something called setup, where we're going to set the width and the height of the actual screen. So type in setup and then width equals, in this case, 800 pixels, and then height as 600 pixels. So I want you guys to type out these 4/5 lines. And then, of course, type it in the chat when you're done. Okay, so as we go along, okay, so as we go along, I want you guys to consistently, like, you guys can keep typing, but I want you guys to consistently run your code just to make sure it doesn't set errors. When you end up writing code, you are going to want to write a small section and then run it just to make sure that this section works. And then, yeah, someone asked, is something supposed to happen? Technically, something is supposed to happen, but you won't see it because all we've done is create this screen. So as you can see, if I click on this, I can see the kind of border that I've created, and this is because this is the screen with the width 800, height 600. So try that. And then if you guys run an error, again, try going to the link earlier. I'm going to post it again. You shouldn't be able to see the border, first of all. And then, so you want to set this, and you can copy this. For now, let's just leave this white. So has this worked so far? Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is add a single line here. It's going to be wn.tracer, and what you're going to do is wn.tracer, and you're going to put 0. So what this does is it basically turns all of these animations we're going to work on, and this is a really important line because if you don't type this, the rest of the code might not actually end up working. So run this, and nothing should happen again. Type in the chat when you're ready. Okay, so we're going to move to actually creating the first paddle. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new turtle, and this is going to be called paddle A. And with paddle A, we've got to set a couple things. The speed as 0. Does anyone remember what setting speed as 0 does? Great, so it sets it as the fastest possible speed. And then what we're going to do right now is we're going to set the shape to a square, the color of the paddle, aka, yeah, the paddle as black. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pen up, so make our movements invisible. We're going to go to minus 350, 0, and it's going to basically set the turtle moving up, and then it's going to go all the way over here, and it's going to set our paddle A to this position. So let's type out this code. Paddle A equals turtle dot turtle, creating a turtle. I'd advise you guys to start typing right now because I'm going to type a little bit fast. And then we're going to set the speed as the fastest, as you guys said, the shape as a square, the color. For now, just stick to the colors that we're doing here, and then we're going to let it move by going pen up, oops, and then going to our first location. Okay, so as you can see, this actual paddle, right, see, so as Jin Young said, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, you're not going to see the paddle yet because we've created the turtle, but first of all, it's still pen up, so you're not going to see that because it's still floating. And second of all, we haven't really done anything. So when you run this, nothing should appear still. Just make sure it doesn't run an error. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people are ready. Of course, because we have two paddles, we're going to create the second paddle. And with the second paddle, we're going to call it paddle B. You are going to put in pretty much the same things, except we're going to go to positive 350, and that way they're in different locations. So for this part, I know a lot of you are going to copy and paste, so I'm just going to say when you create, and especially with code, I strongly advise against copy and pasting things because it's one of the easiest way for your code to go wrong. But in the case right now, you can try, just be aware that when you copy and paste, there's a huge risk of something going wrong. And then just like with, wow, that was really fast for whoever's already done. Um, just like with the last one, you are just going, nothing's going to actually show up. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is we're going to create the actual ball. And I'm just going to point something really small out right now. Notice that we have different turtles for all of the paddles. You're going to want to create multiple turtles that way for each kind of item you create. So we're going to create the ball and we're going to make a new turtle. And then with the ball, again, the speed is going to be 0. And then note that this speed right now of this ball is not going to be how fast it like bounces. This is just going to be the speed of like drawing the ball, if that makes sense. So we're going to set the ball shape as circle. I'm pretty sure you could also set it as a square, but we're just going to leave it as a circle for now. And then again, it's going to be black. And this ball, for the ball, we are going to set our pen up and we're going to have it go to the center point, aka 0, 0. Okay, so while you guys type this code out, I'm just going to mention a brief thing. So as you guys can see, we have ball.dx equals 2 and ball.dy equals -2. Do you guys have like a guess as to what that means, first of all? Okay, so a lot of guesses. How many of you have learned about like the coordinate system or like X and Y? Please don't put YouTube links in the chat. Great, so when we put the coordinate system, we have, I'm going to use a line, we have our axes, and we're going to have the x-axis and the y-axis. And the idea is when we move along these axes, or we have shapes along these axes, okay, so if I were to draw a point here, then we could say, we could go along the x-axis and go, oh, x is 0, y is going up and down. Let's just say 4. And the idea is if I were to take this ball and I move it around, it's going to move around these axes. So someone said, so its slope. basically. But the idea is, not really, but like, yeah. So we're going to start at 0, 0. The ball is at 0, 0. Notice that when we set the ball and paddles earlier, it's still going to, like, these coordinates here are the coordinates, and you guys can keep type, yeah. So the idea is when we put dx and dy, it's going to be the direction and the amount, like someone said slope, basically, of how much we go per time. So if I have this direction, the ball is going to move this way. It's going to move a certain direction in x and y. So in direction, we can break this like direction up to x and y. So it's going to go this much x and this much y. And right now we are going to set them as 2 and minus 2. So in this case, we would be moving 2x, so positive 2 this way, and then for y minus 2, it would be going down this way. So when we start the program, it's going to take this ball, and the ball is going to start moving down this way because we set this as, the easiest way you can think about it is we set x as positive, so in x terms, it's going to be going this way. And then we set y as negative, so it's going to be going down as y. So in total, it's just going to be kind of going down in this direction. Does that kind of make sense? Oh yeah, just ignore my messy annotations. Okay, so when we, again, when we set the actual ball, it's just going to be going this direction, x, it's going to be going a positive x, 2, and then it's going to be going y down, negative 2 in the direction. So the result is by going this way 2 and going this way 2, it's going to let the ball go down in an angled slope this way. So are you guys ready to move on to the next bit? Okay, I'd like to mention something. This is going to be the direction. Just think about it as almost direction of x and y. That's not what the D stands for, but it's going to be the direction when we start moving the ball. So the actual location of the ball is 0, 0, but it's not, this is not the location of where the ball goes. It's just the direction of when the ball starts. So right now, nothing should be on your screen. So what we're going to do now is, as you may have noticed, with our paddles, we set it to a square. But if you go back to, say, the images of the paddles, it's not a square. So what we're going to do is we need to make kind of the length of the ball, of the paddles. So what we're going to do is we're going to make blocks. And right now we're just going to make the blocks as new turtles. So block A equals turtle dot turtle. And then we're going to do that again for all of the blocks. So and then if you guys are copy and pasting this, you can just make sure that you name this different. You name the blocks differently. And then take this moment while I'm busy typing this to make sure that your code so far is like doesn't run an error. So run the code, and then can you guys put in the chat again if you're ready to move on? Okay, so for those of you who aren't yet ready, I'd strongly advise just taking this code from the link that I posted earlier. Okay, so for each one of these blocks, obviously they need to move along with the original paddle A because it's going to kind of require. Okay, so when we make the paddle, all of these blocks are going to need to move together in sync. So when we do this, we're going to create something called a function where we are going to change the blocks as the paddle moves. So as this turtle moves, the rest of these blocks are going to need to move along with it. So what we're going to do is, can anyone remind me what this is, what type it is? Great, so this is a function, as we mentioned in last week's class, and it's going to have the def, so we're going to put def, and then the name of this function is going to be change paddle block, and our parameters are going to be the block and the x and the y. So we are going to have the block go up, leave the shape as square, and then we're going to go to the locations of x and y. So I want you guys to type in this function. Oh, I forgot to mention, but I'm going for like easier syntax, every time there's supposed to be a tab, I'm going to put one of these. So just put a tab when you see those. And then the amount of these little curly things, there are the amount of tabs you do, because we're going to start adding like more indented tabs on and on. Okay, let me just quickly re-explain this. You're not going to actually type out the curly thing. You are going to type out a tab in place of it. It's just here to tell you basically how much or how many tabs you put in. So in this case, we're going to put one tab for each of these because these are all inside of the function. And then type in when you're ready. Oh, well, I forgot the... My bad. Okay. So as you can see right here, we have our parameters as block, x, and y, and then we are going to type in this code. So when we actually move our paddles, we are going to make another function. And the first one we're going to do is going to be called draw rec right. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a value of x and y as the coordinates of paddle A. So this is just the y coordinate and x coordinate. And then we are going to, every time, so this is going to be a little bit more complicated. Every time we move the paddle here, we move this turtle, we're going to need to change all of these blocks A through D, to basically move along with it. So as you can see, we are going to have the main, I'm going to draw this out. We're going to have the main block here. So this is going to be, that's not a block. So we have the shape here of our paddle A, and then we are going to basically move all of our blocks so that every time this moves, every time this one block moves, this block is going to move along with it, and then this block is going to move along with it. So we're going to have this kind of paddle move together in sync. Okay, great. So I want you guys to basically copy down this code for the define draw rec right. Oh yeah, and then thank you to Eileen who put the code in the chat so far. So then we are going to change the paddle block of basically all of the blocks so far. And then can anyone guess why we are going to add 20, add 40 to the y coordinates? Okay, I'm gonna move this. I'm going to briefly mention, so someone mentioned that it doesn't do anything yet. First of all, it won't do anything yet because okay, so can anyone remind or say why this isn't actually going to display anything on the screen yet? Okay, so the reason that this isn't going to actually display anything, perfect. We haven't called the function yet, and since we haven't called any functions, nothing is going to show up because technically none of this code has run, or none of these two functions have run. And the idea is, since we have blocks, here it is. So we have these blocks, the center of the block is going to be here, and then the idea is we need to add 20 because we can't have these blocks overlap because that would kind of be a little bit of a waste. We don't want them to overlap this way. We want them to be put apart in the way where they look like one long rectangle. So the y coordinates, we are going to basically, when I move this block up, I'm going to also move this block up, but in the way where I'm going to set it to these coordinates and then add the y coordinates, we're going to add 20 in the case of, say, block A, where we are going to move it up. Oops. Yeah, we're going to move it up, and it's going to move and function along like one long rectangle. So are you guys ready to move on to the next one? Okay, I'm going to wait. So again, I'm pretty sure someone posted the code up there for the, yeah. Great, yeah, so we're going to go to starcoder.org pong game, and then you can, if you're feeling behind, you can basically copy these individual functions. I just want to know, I don't want you guys to copy the entire code because that kind of, it's not your code in that case. So I'm going to move to this one. For the left paddle, it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. The main difference being that we are going to use paddle B's coordinates, and then we are going to use block E, F, and G. So you can actually copy and paste this function if you are really careful, but okay, so so I'm going to quickly finish this up. We are going to reset the board if you miss the ball, but we're not going to put official scores on there yet. So I'm going to pause for a second for basically anyone who still needs to type. And then when you're ready and this runs okay, I want you guys to type it in the chat. But we're going to pause here for a second. So far it's not supposed to actually draw anything because we've just been creating functions and not actually drawing anything yet. Okay, are you guys ready to move on? Okay, again, if you aren't, I would advise copying the code directly from the site. So the next thing we are going to do is talk about going up. So up as in moving up when we put our paddles. So when we control the paddle, what's going to happen is we are going to use our up and down keys or whatever keys and oops, okay. So the paddle is going to be moving up and down. So we're going to have it move down, move up in order to basically catch the ball. So to define this actual movement, we're going to create a function called paddle A up. And this is going to run whenever we put the up key. So we are going to create def paddle A up, and this is going to allow paddle A to go up. We are going to set the value of y to paddle A dot y core. And I'm going to repeat this again. Whenever we set a variable to this, we're basically kind of calling and finding the current y coordinate of paddle A or B. And we're going to set this variable to the value of the coordinate or the y coordinate of the paddle. So to move up, we are going to increment a certain amount. In this case, we're going to add 20 to y. And what we're going to do is take this y and then reset the value of y. So paddle A dot set y, we're going to set the new y as y. So type this bit for now and then type in the chat when you're ready. Okay, keep typing if you're not. I'm going to explain this next command. What we're going to do is we're going to use the window and we are going to put a function called listen. And what listen does is basically as the game progresses, you're going to be moving your keys up and down to get the paddles to move, right? So what this is going to do is tell the Python program to keep listening for more commands, meaning that if I type up key, if I have the paddle go up, and then I want it to keep going up, I'm going to consistently push the button over and over again. And what this is going to do is continuously listen for these commands. Someone asked, what does the plus equal mean? We covered this in an earlier class, but the idea is you're doing the current value of y and then adding 20. So it's this plus equal is equal to y equals y plus 20. It's just kind of like a faster way to write it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the window listen, and then we are going to use the on key, basically to say we are going to run this function, paddle A up, whenever the W key is pushed. So we are going to go paddle A up, no, parentheses, W. I'm just going to briefly mention you're probably not going to see the actual paddles until later on, so don't worry about not seeing anything on the screen. Okay, I'm just going to mention before we move on, for this next bit, you can copy and paste a lot of code, but I want you guys, if you're going to copy and paste the functions, to be really careful as to see what you switch and what you don't switch. So Okay, so right now we are going to we're going to create the way for paddle A to move down. We are going to define paddle A down. And as you can see, it's pretty similar to paddle A up, except we are subtracting 20 instead because the y coordinate is going to be going down. So just like with adding equals, this is going to subtract equals, so it's going to be the value of y. This is equal to y minus 20. Okay, I did that wrong again. So we're going to do y equals negative equals to, and then in this case, we are going to set the key that will allow us to go down as S. So we're going to go wn.onKey and then paddle A down, S. Make sure you run this to check there are no errors. Okay, so right now what we've done is we've created the functions for the first paddle going up and down. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but for paddle B. So for this part, I really don't want you guys to copy and paste it because the chance of an error is really high. So try and actually type out the code. Yeah, you can copy and paste, but it's not recommended. So don't copy and paste this part. Try and actually type out the functions. So just like with paddle A, it's going to grab the value of y, and then we're going to increment by 20, and then reset the value of y for paddle B as the new y. And then for paddle B, we are going to have the up and down keys. So when we do wn.on key, it's going to just be up. And then we're going to put the string up because Python understands this to mean like the up and down arrows on your keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to pause a second because it's quite a little bit of code to write, and then type in the chat when you're ready, or if you have any problems with the code right now. Okay, so again, type in the chat when you're ready to move on. I understand it's like a lot of code to type. Okay, I'm just going to put these two inside. Okay, yeah. I'm going to type in these two functions. So if you guys have any errors with these, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to define a function for when we're going to clear it. So what we're going to do is we're going to define block clear, and we're going to go for x in here. We're basically making a new list of all of these blocks, and then it's going to have us clear the list. So we're going to go for x in, and then make sure you add the colon here, and then you're going to go x dot clear. So basically type in this function code right now. Okay, I'm gonna make this larger. You guys can just technically copy the code from here. It's the same stuff. Let me see if this shows. Okay, I can't show the full code here, so it's just all of these blocks here. So we're going to clear every one of the blocks, so from A to H. Great, so Ethan put the code in the chat if you guys need it. Ah, no. Okay, so far what's happened is we've created a bunch of functions. So as you noticed, oh, so someone asked, why do we need the parentheses? I'm pretty sure you mean these. So with functions, we are going to need parentheses. So for all of these dot clear or set y, these are actually going to be Python's or Turtle's built-in functions. So when we import Turtle way up here, the idea is we're importing all of these functions, and these are functions that Python automatically has. So when we put the parentheses in there, it's basically saying that we are calling the function. Okay, so as you may have noticed, so far nothing is run. What we're going to do now is we are going to actually get everything to show up. So we're going to put a loop called while true, and can anyone tell me how many times this loop, or when this loop stops? Right, so we don't put the things in the parentheses. Yeah. Great, so yeah, we are going to run this until it is false. But as you can see, we're literally putting while true. So this is never going to stop until we stop running it. So this is just going to be ongoing and it's going to continuously work. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to update the window. And what this is going to do is this is going to continuously re-update the screen. And then we are going to call the two functions of drawing the two rectangles. So we're going to draw rec right and draw rec left. Okay, I'm going to move this over slightly so this can be well. Okay, so as you can see, this is kind of hard to show right now, but we have our two paddles and our ball, and they have now showed up. Nope. And they have now showed up. So what we're going to do now is we are going to, okay, I'm going to get the slide to stop doing that. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to set the coordinates and have the ball start moving. First of all, good job, guys. We've written almost 100 lines of code, including spaces, but that's not important. What we're going to do now is have the ball start moving. So we're going to go ball.setX, ball coordinate. So this is going to be our current coordinate plus ball dot, wow, this is not going to work. Okay, ball.dx, and then we're going to do the same for y. So as you might remember from way back near the beginning of the class, I mentioned we set the value of dx and dy to 2 and negative 2. So what this is going to do is, since our original x and y coordinates were 0, 0, every time this loop runs, which it's going to keep running over and over again, we are going to set this ball, we are going to have this ball move, in this case, to this way and then to this way. So while true, it's just going to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving down this way. So I want you guys to run the code now. You guys have to, by the way, you want to rerun the code every time you add something. So if we run this, okay, so the question I want to ask you guys is, why does it just keep going off screen? I'll run it again while you answer. Oh, the other thing is, as I'm reading the chat a little bit late, you guys want to make sure to actually drag your window bigger, because as you can see, we set it a little bit bigger in the beginning, so if you don't drag the window all the way out, you won't be able to see this paddle. So make sure you drag it all the way out when you're ready to look at it. Okay, so make sure you guys actually run the code, and it should run. And the idea of this is the ball is just going to keep going down on and on. And since that's because we haven't set any reasons for it to move. So right now it's just going to continuously move on and on. So what we're going to do is we are going to, by the way, if you guys need to see the code, you can access the site again. You are supposed to see the paddles by now because we have created this. And again, be very careful when you guys do it because as you can see, there are a lot of errors popping up here and there. But as you guys fix those, I'm going to continue on with the lesson. What we are going to do is make sure that the edges, whenever the ball hits the edges, it moves. So what we're going to do is we're going to use if statements, and we're going to say if the y coordinate of the ball is greater than 290, we are going to set the y as 290, and we are going to have it dy multiply equal to -1. I'm going to put this back in here. Okay, all of my code so far, this might spam the chat a little bit. So I'm going to put this, wow, that's not supposed to happen. Okay. This is the code you should have so far if you have any errors. And then I'm going to put the link here again, just in case. So for the edges of this, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply dy by -1. And what this is going to do is, as you can see right now when we're moving the ball, we're moving it to -2. So it's going to go in this direction. But when we multiply the dy by -1, what it's going to do is it's going to move in the opposite direction. So our current value of dy should be -2. So -2 times -1 is 2. And what this is going to do is it's going to have it keep on going this way. It's going to have it move from here this direction, because what it's going to do is it's going to kind of bounce off the wall, because what we're doing is we're taking the value of originally this was 2. Wow. Originally this was, I'm going to switch colors. Originally this went down in a slope of 2, -2, 2. But when we move our and multiply by -1, what we're doing is we're changing the slope to 2 and then +2. So it's going to bounce off the wall. And what this does is it's going to let us, when we hit the certain y coordinate, it's going to bounce against the wall in the same format. So if this makes sense, I'm going to put it here. So this is just saying if it's greater than the edge here. First of all, we need to set it to the edge. And then we are going to need to change the direction of the y. So try running this right now. Okay. Oh wait, we're looking at the wrong direction. Okay, so right now try putting all of these in place, and what this is going to do is for the 4 sides, it's going to try, so for all 4 sides, it's going to say if we hit one of these sides, we are going to redo it. Okay, so we are going to set all of these. Okay, so right now there are a lot of errors happening in the chat. So if that's happening, you can copy all of the code from the link and you can try and find individual things. And I'm going to actually give you guys a site that might help a little bit. It's going to be diff checker. And what this is going to do is it's like an online thing. So what you can do is you can paste your code. You can paste, let's say I have my code here, and then you can paste your code into change text. And then what it's going to do is it's going to find all of the differences inside of these codes. So I'm going to put my code back into the chat. And what this is going to do is basically find if there are any differences. So as you can see, these two files are identical, but if I were to put like M here, what it would do is it would find the difference here. So you guys can use that to try and find the difference between the code you have right now and my code. And then when you guys are ready and the program looks working, type it into the chat. And I'm just going to mention, as you can see here, with all of the edges, it's going to hit the edge, bounce back, but when it hits these edges, so when it hits the left and right edges, it's going to reset because that means you've lost. But when it hits the lower and upper edges, it's going to just bounce off. So we're going to run a little bit later today because there's still one more bit of code we need in order to get this game to work. Okay, so I'm going to quickly explain this last concept and then I will stay after class for all of your errors and stuff. This is going to be the hardest bit. It's going to be the collisions. And what this means is that right now, if I move my paddle up, nothing happens basically. The ball won't react to my paddle because we haven't set it to react to anything. So what we need to do right now is we need to compare the x coordinates and the y coordinates of the ball versus the coordinates of the paddle. So right now paddle A, if you'll remember, it's the center square. So it's going to have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. And what this is we are going to compare the ball's x coordinates and the actual paddle's coordinates. And then when we do that, we are going to type in this code. I'm going to type this in real quickly and then let you guys copy and paste it from the chat. So what we're doing is we're going to do ball.xcore greater than 340 and ball.xcore less than 350. Does anyone briefly remember how AND works again? So as you can see here, I'm just going to briefly explain this, and it's just saying it is true if all of these conditions are true. And what we're doing here is we are putting in a bunch of conditions, and what they're going to be is paddle. We're going to see if it's in basically within proximity of 80. So whether it's within we have our paddle here and we have our center X and Y, and we're just checking to see if the ball's X and Y is within 40 up and down and is within a certain amount left and right. And if this is true, that means they're colliding. So what we're going to do is we're going to do ball.setX as 340. And then what we're going to do is, again, move our direction as -4, or -1. And then we're going to do the same thing for this part. I will send all of the code in a second if. And then here we are going to do the same thing where we set x, but this time it's going to be negative 340. And then we're going to do ball.dx multiply equals -1. So, right, so as someone said, the ball just goes through the paddle. So what we're doing right now is this is going to be making sure if we collide, yeah, so we're doing collisions right now. If the ball and the paddle collides, it's going to reset. So that's what these two ifs are for. I'm going to put in all of my code in right now. I think that's all of it. Oh, okay, it's not all of it. So right now it goes to draw rec right. So I'm going to put in this end bit. Right now I'm just going to paste all of my code in if you guys have an error. And this is the last bit. And then at the very end, what we're going to do is we are going to add block clear. So what this is going to do is clear pretty much everything. Oh. Okay, so if you guys have any errors, I'm sorry for running a little bit late and going fast for this lesson, but I'm going to be here if you guys have anything or need anything, and the Pong game should work decently well. So I'm going to leave the code bit here up. Okay, next week we are going to work